Hey y'all, it's your girl, the Authentic Empress. I hope you can hear me pretty good. So I just wanted to share just some quick messages with you guys that I was getting. And one of the main things has kind of just been replaying in my mind today was, do you remember when there was a time when running was literally something done out of fun, you know, out of just dispersing like a burst of energy. It used to be something that was fun to us when we were kids, when we were young, right? And now it's mostly become um, a fitness goal or exercise, like the stressor that's been added to it, right? Just to create more stress, illusional stress in the individual, right? Um, but I was just thinking about how we've co-created a society or with society to create or add and inflate stress in our lives, right? Or our susceptibility to being plagued with unnecessary stressors or things that otherwise wouldn't have to be stressful if we um, detach from societal or the societal expectations, right? That's been um, built around these things or these concepts that's been developed. Like fitness, for example. I remember watching this interview of this family who was plant-based, or they grew up plant-based or whatever. And they were asked, one of the questions they were asked was about fitness. What is their outlook? What is their perspective regarding fitness with living a plant-based lifestyle? And I remember one of the main things they said, and it's not the first time I heard this, but they were saying literally, the activity of you just, living in the moment, whether that's playing around with your children or you get up and you dance, listen to some good music, whatever it is that you feel like doing, or your body is just feeling, eager to do as it pertains to some type of movement or activity, right? But not so much needing to be focused on rigorous physical activity, right? Like a lot of people do now when it comes to fitness. So what she was saying was, when you eat, as long as you eat healthy, you drink a lot of water, you get some sunlight, right? You go outside, you be in nature. Natural activity. It doesn't even matter if it's like, cleaning, but just activity, right? Allowing the body to move. It doesn't have to be, so stressful as, oh, let me get this gym membership and I need to keep up with this. By any means, do that if that's if that's where you feel called. But if you're doing it, for the sake of a societal expectation or, this, that, and the third, you may want to reevaluate that, especially if it's a lot of stress, unnecessary stress attached to it, or it has a power of inflating your ego, and then your ego tries to not empower, your ego tries to overthrow or overpower your true self, your inner being, right? We need to look like this isn't enough, I I'm not satisfied with this. If we don't do this, then this will happen, and this person will treat me this way, or I won't get accepted, or da 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 da. This will happen, right? So something, just like I said in the other video, or a person who truly, comes to this understanding with Source and how important it is to be in the present moment, in the now, right? Cherishing the now, the most promised moment you will ever have, right? Opposed to worrying ourselves to death, literally the whole time in between. So there's this show that I kind of felt guided to watch on last night, and it's on Netflix. It's called Midnight Gospel. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. You may want to check it out. But basically, it's this whole animated series of this individual who basically time travels, in a sense. but he quantum leaps, he travels dimensions, right? So different dimensions or different earths, right? Because in this, it's a simulator, a universe simulator or something like that that he has, and it allows him to be projected or to enter these different universes or these different earths, right? Or forms of existence. And so it's a pretty good animated series that really breaks down enlightenment, and it's basically this person who is woke, and he goes to these different, altered universes or these different planets, these different forms of existence in order to interview an individual there on their concept of spirituality or just whatever they can add, like adding puzzles, right? Adding a piece to the puzzle of, really understanding this thing. Because so many people are so caught up on how much information they can get about this, opposed to just sitting in stillness, opposed to just cherishing the present moment, right? Opposed to being appreciative and, having gratitude of, the things that in essence we really do have, that we may not allow ourselves to truly identify, acknowledge, and appreciate because we're mostly concerned about what other people say we should have instead, or what we should have by this age or by that age, or where we should be by this age or that age, how we should be, right? We're most concerned about outside approval, outside acceptance, more so than we are accepting ourselves, right? Approving ourselves. So another thing too, like about accepting yourself is accepting every version of yourself, as in whatever decisions that you made that resulted into you disliking yourself more than you did before. These are the things you need to forgive yourself about, right? Anything that threatened your self-concept or your self-esteem, regardless of decisions that were made when it comes to handling you or decisions that you personally made in your life, whether that was, out of ignorance or a lack of more understanding, a lack of clarity, or even being misguided and misled, right? So a lot of times people, find themselves in these long prison sentences within their own selves because they're not approving themselves, they're not forgiving themselves, they're not accepting themselves, right? So that's another thing too, that a lot of us, we get swindled. Our happiness, our joy, our peace, even our creativity, even our expression sometimes, like speaking our truth, or, it gets stolen from us because of something that's either already happened that we cannot change, or something that, has yet to come. And then it steals even more from you because when you're focused, or when you're allowing these thoughts, these old thoughts and emotions, right? Or, something that's worrying about a time that's not even here yet, you're allowing that to take over your present moment. The more you do that and you stay within this pattern day after day, it's constantly stealing from you. It's constantly stealing your manifestations. It's disrupting what you're trying to manifest into your reality in general, into the now moment, thus your future as well. So it's like we have to stop allowing our flesh as well to steal from us, to still continue stealing the value and the quality from our souls, right? Stealing away love, stealing away our peace, stealing away any of the sacred virtues of the spirit, of the soul. Like, we have to stop allowing that at some point. We really have to be able to sit and recognize and watch these things as it happen, right? And in Buddhism or Buddhas, you'll hear them say this about, oneness and stillness and wholeness and just being connected to source, right? And there's this scripture that says, consider the lilies, how they toil not, right? And also about grass, how the grass will go get thrown into the next day and it grows right back, right? So basically what Yahshua or, divine is trying to emphasize to us, reiterate to us, is that we're so worried about these things and we're making, other people and other things our master, our God, to bring us, relief to situations that we should be able to draw, out of the reality in general, out of source, those things. It's like, if there's an energy or a higher force, a higher frequency that you can't align with your damn self, that you're supposed to be in alignment with, right? So you can have that magnetic experience with it. If there is a frequency more powerful, you know, more transformative and more purifying than, you know, the actual paper that's turned into money or currency itself. Like trees. There's people who neglect trees, but they thirst for money. But how is money made, right? So you have people out here who don't even appreciate nature, but they're wanting so much, right? You're wanting so much and you're not grateful. You don't have any gratitude. You don't even cherish, you know, all the abundance that is around you, because now you don't even know what abundance looks like. Your perception has been so corrupted and tainted. You don't even understand what abundance and success look like, because you allow these idols and these influencers to shape that for you, to define that for you, right? This is why, you know, the soul has to go through several refinements. We have to constantly be refined, right? That's why, you know, it says, after I come forth, or after I've been tried, I will come forth as pure gold. So think about gold being refined, right? Think about olives being pressed for oil, right? So this refining process that we are constantly going under, especially when we have this. This is when you really can feel it. When you feel like you're having these moments of your shadow work, or you're having your own inner tower moment, or mental conflict or anguish. You know, any things, right? That your face, you know, you have no choice but to face it at some point. You're gonna have to start running away from you. At some point, you have to stop running from you. And a lot of people are caught on this pattern of running away from themselves and literally running themselves into their own grave, right? And sometimes running away from themselves to run into other people's graves by who they choose to associate with, you know, what ideals, what concepts, right? What beliefs they choose to adopt and associate themselves with, to idolize, make their God, and thus wait on that reward from that source, but not divine source, right? The original source. So that's just what I was thinking about. Like, wow, I remember when we used to run just to run because it was fun, you know, just to race each other because it was fun, right? Healthy competition. It was just fun to do, and how, you know, just through play and interacting and just, you know, being in a moment of life, you know, with the frequencies of, you know, think about children. What kind of frequencies are children being impacted by, honestly? Honestly, if we was to truly observe the behavior of children and compare that to adults and teenagers, right? And then think about what things are they exposed to compared to these other, you know, age groups, right? And really analyze, you know, the behaviors, you know, their moods, you know, just their whole, you know, understanding of the world, because it's a reason why it says to be childlike in the faith, or be childlike, you know, when it comes to the unseen things of the world, right? Having to believe something that your physical eyes don't have proof, right? That's basically what it means to be childlike, right? That imagination, you know, to not be so controlled by you, but controlled by source, right? By just being present, just being present. And that's why there's another another scripture that also says, it talks about the fowls in the air, the crows. Basically, it says they sow. They said neither do they sow nor reap, that they still have food to eat. You know, I still take care of them. They're still taken care of. You know, whatever they want, they have it. It's endless, right? But we don't operate in that mindset. We don't operate in that mindset anymore, and this is why a lot of people are lost. This is why a lot of people are so confused by trying to figure this out. And it's like, yo, just out sometimes and stop, you know, trying to understand it by all this, you know, physical material outside of us, and just, you know, literally go within the unseen, right? The things that aren't tangible, things that you can't touch. Explore that as well. Observe it. What are other things that we often get by that, you know, is unseen, the thoughts and emotions? So are we observing these things, right? Because if you're not observing it, if you don't have a proper perception of understanding of it, these things can easily be controlling you, or be controlling your life, right? Without you even realizing it. And this is why, you know, being present, being in the now is so crucial. You know, having a meditative mind. And this is why some people will say they don't really have experiences with divine or with divinity until they go to sleep. right? When they're in a dream state, and that's because their body is finally at rest enough for you to be able to receive these waves of information and frequency, right? To hear, the voice of your soul, the voice of the Most High through all the chatter of these thoughts and these emotions from your past or that was picked up, right? Telepathically or empathically. So it's like it's like putting proper documents in its files, right? In its files. And once you clear away all the clutter, there's you. You want to be, in your true original being, your natural original form, right? Your source form. So it's really sad, it's really sad to think about how much, we truly imprison ourselves and how long we do it for the sake of things that's already passed. So if you're still trapped in something that's already passed on, what does that say about you, right? Are you truly alive? Are you truly alive? Can you say that you're alive? Because if life is literally what's right now, right? It's like these trees. This is life. It's alive. It's living right here in the now. I can see this. It's right now, right? But if I go and pluck the leaf off the tree, it's not much long before that leaf dies because it's no longer connected to its root, right? Or to source. So think about that. Think about that when we're cut off. Again, it's like when Yahshua said, you're cut off like a branch. You're like a branch that's been cut off, right? That's what a lot of people end up doing, when they just forsake what's most true to their souls for the sake of what an influencer or what glam or glitter or glitz, is presented to them elsewhere. The kingdoms that's promised to them elsewhere, right? And so it's like it makes you appreciate materials, the material world, more than you appreciate your own soul. It makes you appreciate the material world more than you appreciate the spirit world, right? It makes you appreciate things that you can see that are seen more than you appreciate things that are unseen. And that can be a lot of people's, that ends up being a lot of people's downfall. Because if you can't see what's around you or what's within you, what's overtaking you, what's possessing you, you're still not living. You're not really living. I'm about to go walk because these mosquitoes are white. Magic. 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 But there's one thing I want to make very clear too. Whenever I begin to move away from certain people and places or have these shifts and these awakenings and all these things, it wasn't a matter of I felt that the Most High deceived me anyway or let me down. That's not the kind of attitude that I had about it or that I adopted about it. So, personally, my story is similar to others. I did grow up in a Christian church. But my thing is, yes, I went through all the being forced to go and getting into fights and arguments with my mom because I didn't want to go like when I was younger. When I went off to college, because despite all of that growing up, I still had a relationship of my own with the Most High. I still had like my own understanding. It wasn't something I could just turn off. It was something that was natural, right? That's a part of being chosen. And sometimes the way I will understand things will be different from how all the adults understand things, or how people understand things in unison, right? So there's been several cases where there was a unanimous decision as it pertains to understanding certain passages and just certain parables and this, that, and the third, and how my understanding would be totally different, right? So it kind of started there. When I started to, I'll say this, when I went out to college, maybe like my sophomore or my junior year, no, it was my sophomore year, either later my sophomore year or something like that. After experiencing, just that, I guess that kind of life, that they create, that society creates for us, with the whole college thing, because that within itself is a trap for energy harvesting. But I remember when I really started to go out to parties and stuff like that, because I was never really a person who really partied like that. I wasn't really allowed to also growing up. But it got to a point that I didn't want to my damn self because of the energy that I would feel. I would be so sensitive to energies and frequencies. So the energies I would feel, it would repel me naturally. Because, I have, managed to go anyway a couple of times, but I found out for myself, yeah, my energy, this is just not something that's respective of my energy, right? So with college, I felt it would be a little different. I remember just making friends in general and getting how I got invited to go out with this friend that ended up becoming my roommate the sophomore year. And so I went out a few times, to these college parties that we would have, because it was, at least it was people who were more sensible, right? So, but eventually I had to stop going there too because it began to descend. The people there began to descend. And also it wasn't just college students that was there, it would just be sometimes locals that would come and intrude as well, and there were definitely some locals there with some devil energy. And so I made a decision to, I just didn't want to participate anymore. And I remember just dealing with what I was doing. I was dealing with the death of my sister, this, that, and the third. I was dealing with a rape situation. And the reason why I said I was dealing with all these things in college is because when I was back home, I had to be strong for my family members, who seemed to be most hurt by something that happened to me, So for some reason, and nobody told me to do it. I just naturally felt like I had to put on this strong suit or this strong face, keep it, hold it together just so that they could, right? So I didn't really get to grieve, through my traumatic experiences, this, that, and the third, when I was around certain people or the people that I originally, came up with. So those things, my real healing. Well, I take that back because I used to write, so I was still write. But as far as like just blatantly dealing with it, that didn't really start until, I went off to school and I was more so by myself. So I remember just hearing certain passages, being reminded certain things, and even certain sightings and visions that I would have in dreams. Like I was a dreamer. I am a dreamer. Like I have dreams that come to pass. And so I remember just feeling guided. I always believed that I can just open the book to any page and, whatever page I open it to, there's a message for me or, there's some type of revelation or insight that, the Most High would guide me with. And so that's what I was doing, and then I was learning more and more just how much I had in common with Yahshua. And that's really what truly ignited or escalated, elevated my trust, my bond, my connection with Source was how much we had in common. When I would think about the people that was around me, my friends, my family, or just, people in general, how I see the world, how I understood the world. And it's like, it became very comforting for me to read, their perceptions as well, and to know that I wasn't alone with my perception, right? Because even the people that was around me, in the church and stuff like that, even though they was preaching these things, some of these people were still, living hypocritically when it came to a lot of wisdom that was spoken in the Bible, like especially Proverbs, right? I took a strong liking to the book of Proverbs, and it really just started a whole nother shift for me. All the wisdom I was seeing out, and I was just like, wow, And when I was reading about the persecution, there's different things, the gospel of peace, or those who have, carry the gospel of peace, being predestined. But we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against rulers of the darkness, spiritual wickedness in high places, right? All these things resonated with me and was being reflected and projected and playing out in my life experience, my real life experiences. That's why at the age of 18, I automatically knew that I'm going to be helping people in some shape or form, when it comes to this emotional thing, this psychological thing, this spiritual thing. But, just really, healing, right? Or preventative measures, like either preventative measures to avoid, certain things that can delay or cripple healing or health in any form, emotionally, psychologically, right? Because of the things that I experienced a hell of a lot. Like by the age of 18, I've been raped multiple times. I've been gang raped at 15. I experienced a lot of shit like in my earlier years. So I just automatically knew, hey, I don't want anybody to have to experience this, to have to feel this, yada, yada, yada. So I felt like psychology or criminology, those type of things was my route because I just wanted to understand, the ugly side of human understanding, right? The darker sides about the human mind and all of those things, or just understanding myself and others. Even the fucked up shit that I didn't like about them, I wanted to understand it, right? So as I would read more and more, I'd just be called to like just read these things, and I would just see how the words were just, it just reflected my life so much. That's why nobody could tell me that Yahshua is not real, the Most High is not real, angels, the spirit realm, the spirit guides, your ancestors. Nobody can tell me that shit is not real because I've had firsthand experience with them repetitively throughout my entire life. So it's just, like I even remember when all this information started coming out about, oh, the whole Bible is a lie and this, that, and the third. And it was a lot of people who was basically in their emotions. It was a lot of people's egos. It was their ego speaking and not so much them like truly their true selves, or even allowing their true selves to sit and analyze the thoughts, the information, and the emotions that was coming up, right? They didn't watch it and observe it. They just automatically went with that, right? And so anytime people be super impulsive when it comes to stuff like that, especially ancient sacred texts that are coded, you feel me? You have to be careful with people like that. You got to be careful with people like that because I already know from my own experience, I have a lot of people associate me with being deep as fuck. I've had people tell me that all my fucking life, and I get, feeling misunderstood and this, that, and the third. So I totally, it's like I relate with the words in itself as if like I know the words are alive, as if it's a spirit, bro. It's like because I can relate, I resonate with so much of the text, or like especially the text from Yahshua's mouth. Because I can resonate so much with it because I've experienced it, I've witnessed it in the people, like in people in my life in general. There's no reason for me to be skeptical about it or anything like that. Or the third, because my eyes, it's like I was just given the understanding. I was given the understanding to be able to understand the text. Even when the people, who was held on the pedestal in my church, like when I was in the church and stuff like that, you feel me? I was still, revealing mind-boggling things, right? Because I wasn't so focused on trying to go off what everybody else was saying to get the answer right. What do I need to say to get the answer right? There was more people, we would have Sunday school and Bible study and stuff like that. People was more concerned about getting the answer right and then getting some type of praise or something like that because they got the answer right. Right? So how do I remember what somebody else told me or the understanding that somebody else gave me about this? And let me just recite that or regurgitate that. And that counts as me knowing. No, it does not. And so whenever I would, answer these questions, I would actually sit there in the spirit. I'm not in nobody else's mouth. I'm not, concerned about what somebody will think. I would actually sit and process or observe the parable, observe these things. And somehow, like what I will get, what my response, it would just be like, whoa, what? Yeah. Yeah, because I wasn't looking to y'all to get that answer. I've always looked to source to get these answers to these things or get these understandings. Whether I'm here or not, like, or I'm sitting with you, I'm reading with you, it's still like the whole process of understanding is going to differ between each individual, right? Everybody's, understanding processes differ depending on, what they invest in, how they sow into that part of their spirit, that portion of their spirit, right? Something that's unseen. And remember, a lot of people neglect or ignore, they don't take serious things that they can't see, including what's within themselves, right? So that's one of the curses upon men, unfortunately, all right? So it's like, do you know that you literally every day and every moment you have an opportunity to cherish your present moment? How something as simple as gratitude can literally shift your entire reality. If you really separate yourself from what our society deems as high priority, and we really study these ancient texts, and we look over these things, and like, for example, there's some people who really feel less of a man or less of a person because they don't own a vehicle, right? And that's because society says that, you're not a man, or you're not this, or you're not this kind of person, or you're not successful unless you have these things. So think about the people who literally suffer day after day because they don't got no fucking car. They don't have something that society said that they're supposed to have, right? In order to be deemed a happy person, a satisfied person in this life, in this culture, right? That's bullshit. That is absolute bullshit. It's like, so at this point, the car has become more important than your own soul, than your own breath, your own life. The fact that you're alive, it's become more important than that, right? It's really sad, but it's like, it can sound cliche. It can sound like something you already heard before. It should sound like something familiar. It should be familiar. It's supposed to be, right? Everything that's familiar is not, dangerous or a lie or something like that. Sometimes it's about the things that's written on your heart, the things that resonate. That's why the frequency of love always resonates. It doesn't matter who the fuck it is. If it's real, it doesn't matter if it's a fucking stranger. If somebody truly, express love to you in any way, like doing something for you, being generous, it doesn't matter. If it's authentic, if it's genuine, if it's sincere, right? If it's source love, you're going to feel that frequency. Because something I always say is that frequency is the number one language. That is the number one language. So that's another thing too. We will be quick to observe the words of the thoughts and the emotions, like, because it's like powered thoughts. That's what emotions are. Like, emotions are like powered up thoughts that affect your body. It can affect your body. It can cause bodily responses and reactions, right? But if you really think about it, we will listen to the words, but we don't really evaluate the frequencies that's attached to it as well. Like, that's why it's just so important to just be able to hold yourself whenever, it's like shaking up a bottle of soda, or a soda that got shooken up, and then you try to open it and it start to fizz up, about to bubble out, so you don't open it all the way, right? You'll close it, let it settle some. Before you open it, you'll twist it off a little bit more. It's still fizzing up, so you close it back, let it settle. And then when it fully settled, that's when you open the cap. And that's what we have to do with our emotions and our thoughts. This is why being meditative, having a meditative state of being, a meditative state of mind is so crucial. You don't have to read 500 fucking books to obtain this. You don't. You really don't. And that's where a lot of people get lost in too. It's like, enjoy, the activity of reading itself. Enjoy the activity of listening to someone else who who is a part of your reality. Like, enjoy the magic of the words, the spells. Just really be in the moment. Just pay attention to the moment, being present, right? It just makes things so much better. It really does. It really does. that show I mentioned, Midnight Gospel, I was watching the episode, and it was about this person who kept being reincarnated back into prison. They kept dying every time they didn't get it right. And at the end of their escape, they had to always escape this jail, right? And at the end of each escape, they will have their heart weighed by a feather, like on a scale, and they'll have their heart weighed against the feather. And every time their heart was too heavy, they will have to reincarnate back into that lower state of themselves, right? In human form, like being a prisoner to that, until they figure out, how to get themselves out of it, how to forgive, how to release resentment, and all these things that weigh heavy on the heart, that hardens the heart, that anguish, that anger, right? Once he released these things, and he released, revenge, and all this heavy energy, that's when his heart, it finally outweighs the feather. Well, not outweighs, but it the feather eventually outweighs the heart, or they balance, right? And that's when this person, they were released, they were freed. So that's another thing that we should think about more often too. What happens to the soul when the body's gone? Do we really, think about preparing for that, or being ready for that, investing in that, or investing in nourishing our souls, our spirits, so much so that when it is time for it to leave this particular temple or this vehicle and travel elsewhere, would it be in, good health in order, for that travel? Would it be, in good health as it pertains to its perception, its alignment, and where it goes? It going to its rightful place, or, it's having safe travels, or whatever, or even being, available to be a guide to someone else, or to someone in your legacy, right? So that's something that I will always think of too. Like, I want to be an ascended master in the spirit realm. Like, we can all say, just like when we're, in elementary, what do you want to do when you grow up? Who do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be when your spirit leaves this realm? What do you want to be when your spirit leaves your body? What do you want to be? And so I live my life in such a way that I can be, I can ascend to the ranks of an ascended master in the spirit realm when I leave here, and I can be available to my legacy as a powerful ancestor, right? So, but that's all I have to share with you guys today. It's your girl, the Authentic Empress. I love you guys. I hope you was able to get some type of encouragement or clarity or confirmation from this video. Love you.